Hi, it's Carrie Van Ice here at Barefoot Consultants, and I want to welcome you to another one of our newsletter edition mini training videos. And today, the topic that we're going to be talking about is business English versus general English. So there is a distinction between the two. I'm sure that several of these points are obvious to you, but it's important to note that there are distinct differences between the two. And that means that there will be distinct expectations in anybody who is either employing you or paying you to teach them either general English or business English. So let's just go through those distinctions so that you know from the beginning what the differences are and what the expectations of your future employer or client might be. So first of all, when it comes to business English, a lot of people regard this as, this is not for the purposes of learning a new language. It's not foundational English. This is for the purposes of refining and advancing on skills that already exist. So for people who are coming to you for business English, this isn't the ABCs of English, okay? This is taking where they're already at and advancing them within the business English structure to where they want to be professionally. Business English is very much about vocabulary and business communication. So business vocabulary and business communication. And that would mean that each individual industry is going to have their own vocabulary. If you have a student who is in the mining industry, they're going to have very different vocabulary needs than somebody who's in the tech industry, than somebody who's in the fashion industry. So you will need to bring to the table not just your business knowledge, but also knowledge within those industries. And if you don't have knowledge within those industries, it doesn't mean that you can't teach those students. It simply means that you want to do some brushing up. If you don't know a lot about the fashion industry or the mining industry, then you might want to do your homework before you get in or take a contract teaching students who need that vocabulary. So industry specific is very important. My friend Stephen Johnson, when I interviewed him for the course, and by the way, it's one of the best interviews in the entire course, and I highly encourage you to listen to it. It's really good. He spends quite a bit of time telling you how he's able to go to a country and very quickly get clients. And he was talking about living and teaching in Colombia when he was approached just kind of on the street because people knew that he was an English teacher and said, "Hey, I want you to come and work for me and teach business English." And he said, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." What industry are you in? What's your business? So the first thing he wanted to know is what industry are you in so that he could learn the vocabulary that the employees were going to need to be able to give them what they needed. Now I want to talk about tailoring to the needs. So we talked about vocabulary and tailoring to those needs of your student, but in business English, you also want to tailor to the communication or what I would call interaction needs of the individual. So if you think about this, a CEO of a company is going to have very different communication needs in English than the person who sits at the front desk of their company and greets their customers or their clients. So the needs are very different in that case, and you want to be thinking about what communication needs, either written or verbal, they are going to have in the English language. So somebody who greets people who come into the office, good morning, welcome, who are you here to see? May I take your name? Please have a seat. Somebody who is a CEO of a company is probably giving presentations to maybe even multinational corporations via video chat on the internet, or maybe going to international conferences and presenting to potentially hundreds of people at a time. Very different needs. So you want to know that you can serve the needs of each one of your clients. So doing a bit of a needs assessment at the very beginning and getting a really good idea for how do you use English on a daily basis, or how do you want to be able to use English on a daily basis. Many people who are learning English in the business industry really are doing it to advance their career. They're looking to apply for a job, they want to move abroad and get work in an English-speaking country. So it might not be enough to ask them, how do you currently use English? Ask them what they're shooting for. What's their target? Where do they want to get to? Start with where they're at and build up to where they want to go. So that's very helpful in the business industry. And that leads us into another point where you are going to find that most of your students in business English have higher degrees of motivation and dedication to learning the English language for obvious reasons that I just stated. It's very likely that if they improve their English skills, their salary will improve. They will be able to move up the corporate ladder, as we call it, or move into higher positions and get higher paying work, or potentially keep at the same level but be able to work abroad or travel or do something that they're unable to do currently. So they are going to show up more, be more dedicated to their work, be more diligent about completing the tasks that you might assign to them. So it's also important to note, as high degree of dedication and motivation as they have, these people are busy. They are already working in all likelihood. They probably have families. So they have a limited amount of time to dedicate to learning the English language. So please keep that in mind too. Make sure that you're constantly checking in and making sure that you're serving their current needs and they're able to keep up with the tasks that you've assigned to them. So another thing is, you're really not just teaching English as a business English teacher. Sometimes you might actually also be teaching business English skills, because in all likelihood you're going to be teaching somebody who comes from a different culture, a different business culture, and they might be wanting to know how things operate in your culture or in the Western culture. There are very different business sort of practices in the Asian culture as opposed to the Western culture, or things are just done differently in the Middle East as opposed to how they might be done in Europe. So you are going to be acting a little bit as a business liaison or a cultural liaison to your home country, or in general sort of the Western world that you come from. And you want to keep that in mind too. If you really want to serve your students at the highest level, don't be afraid to let them know if they're making a mistake sort of culturally, in a way, in a business context. They're also looking to you for that. They understand that you've lived in that other culture, you've possibly owned your own business, worked in corporate, or at least understand how business is run in that different culture that they might be completely unfamiliar with. So you're stepping into the role of being also sort of a cultural liaison in this case as well. And that will extend beyond just sort of interaction with sort of personal human interaction or video interaction. You will be teaching a lot of business communication in a written format as well. So obviously a lot of our business nowadays is conducted online, and that's very formal. So as opposed to learning foundational English or general English, that tends to be more informal. If you think about the way we talk to people when we're out on the street, or we're on vacation, or just in our own home, this is a very different context in which we talk when we're in the business world. We use different words that mean the same thing, but they're more formal in nature. So you're probably going to be teaching a much more formal type of English than you would if you're teaching just basic English or foundational English. So those are just some differences between the two and some expectations of your future students or your future clients if you are going to be employed as a business English teacher. So we also have covered this topic in the Speak English and Get Paid course. I did an entire 1-hour webinar on this. Please feel free to go and look at that if you're curious about this. You will find it in the members only access area. If you're one of our members, you have access to that. It's in the webinar playbacks section, and you can just scroll down the list and look for the one that says Business English. That's going to tell you where to click on, where to start, and you are going to find out how to promote your business English services to clients that might want to hire you, or students one-on-one, or even ways that you can find out who in the area that you want to work in might be needing services of a business English teacher. So it's been great to spend some time with you this week. I look forward to seeing you again in next month's newsletter.